I wish to address the recent tragic events in Rafah, in Gaza, which have resulted in numerous innocent casualties. Why this is important for us? Because Indonesia is part of the Islamic world. In the Middle East, what happens in Gaza affects the concern of the Indonesian people. We resolved our differences. We put an end to fighting with Malaysia. We put an end to fighting with Singapore. Now, we are like brothers. East Timor, for many years, I was involved in the East Timor conflict. Now, can anybody imagine that I will sit on the same table with President Ramos Horta? Can you imagine, maybe there's a photograph or a video last night, we were hugging each other.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I do hope you all had an excellent lunch. Thank you very much for returning at pace to this ballroom for this special address. As all of you know, on October 2019, Bapak Prabowo Subianto became the Defense Minister of Indonesia, and almost to the day, 5 years later, on the 20th of October 2024, he will be the President of Indonesia. We are very honored that he's here with us. He's attended IISS Shangri-La Dialogues, IISS Manama Dialogues, a IISS Riyadh Defense Forum, so he's a very faithful supporter of the art of defense diplomacy. It's a delight that we have him here to deliver a special address, and I invite him to take the podium and speak in the special address to the 21st Shangri-La Dialogue. Bapak Prabowo. Thank you very much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Excellencies, fellow participants at the Shangri-La Dialogue 2024, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, good friends, it is indeed a great honor for me to stand for the third consecutive time in the Shangri-La Dialogue here in Singapore. We gather here as leaders, as policymakers in the defense, security, and political field to engage in meaningful discussions which are crucial for enhancing peace and stability in our connected world. Sometimes we feel reluctant to attend these occasions because there is a danger that we do not communicate honestly and do not interact faithfully. We state our positions, and we do not want to listen to opinions of others. However, today we are in a particularly sensitive moment in history. We are witnessing an increase in geopolitical tensions and continuous challenges of multilateralism due to the gravity and intensity of open conflict, blatant violations of international law, and the continued widening trust deficits between states. Distinguished participants, friends, Now, there is a lot of talk about the rule of law, rules-based order, etc., etc. But the geopolitical tension, the conflicts, the incidents that are happening as we sit here gives rise to disillusionment amongst many countries, especially the global south. Indonesia is of the opinion that in this world of ours that's getting smaller and smaller, collaboration, cooperation, compromise, respect for the national interests, the core concerns of others are very important in pursuing peace, security, stability, and prosperity. We are convinced that only dialogue and cooperation can be the effective tools for achieving these goals in our planet, which in reality has become smaller and smaller. Collaboration is the only way to achieve prosperity and harmony. Indonesia is firmly committed to deepening inclusive dialogue, concrete collaboration, as well as upholding international laws, especially respect for the national sovereignty of all states and the territorial integrity as enshrined in the United Nations Charter. Excellencies, the persistent conflicts around the world, most notably in Ukraine and Palestine, highlight the imperative for our continuous commitment to diplomatic dialogue and underscore the importance of international solidarity in our search for peaceful solutions. It is evident that without sustained and genuine global cooperation, achieving lasting peace in these regions will continue to be a formidable challenge. I wish to address the recent tragic events in Rafah, in Gaza, which have resulted in numerous innocent casualties, including children, women, unarmed civilians. These heartbreaking incidents compel us to urgently call for comprehensive investigation into this humanitarian disaster. Understanding the full extent of this tragedy is crucial to preventing such incidents from happening again. We are very aware that the Palestine problem is a long and historical problem. We are cognizant of the fact that both sides have legitimate concerns for their safety, for their right to exist, and for their prosperity. We are also cognizant of the fact that the resolution of this crisis must consist of mutual respect for the rights and the concerns of all parties. There cannot be a single narrative that is legitimate. As is often been repeated, Indonesia calls for a just solution to the problem, and that means the right of not only Israel to exist, but also the right of the Palestinian people to have their own homeland their own states, living in peace. I would like now to comment on the most recent developments in the region. Why this is important for us? Because Indonesia is part of the Islamic world. Although physically we are not of the region, but what happens in the Middle East, what happens in Gaza, affect the concern of the Indonesian people. Regarding the most recent development that we have just noted, that we have just heard, that is the most recent announcement by President Biden of the United States of America on comprehensive proposals for a ceasefire in Gaza. Although we have to further study the details of this proposal put forward and announced by President Biden, we do view this proposal as an important right step in the direction that we have to go. We view this as an important step forward. We are very pleased of news reports that representatives of Hamas has also voiced a positive response to these proposals. I would like also to express today Indonesia's commitment to support a comprehensive and permanent ceasefire as an important step towards a real and lasting solution, towards real peace between Israel and Palestine, and thus real peace in the region. It has been our conviction, along with many other states in the world today, that the only real solution to a lasting peace and security for both Israel and Palestine is a two-state solution. Indonesia supports all efforts and all measures that can fasten the progress towards that final two-state solution. In the meantime, we are prepared to do whatever we can to provide humanitarian assistance, as well as, when needed and when requested by the United Nations, we are prepared to contribute significant peacekeeping forces to maintain and monitor this prospective ceasefire, as well as providing protection and security to all parties and to all sides. We are also prepared to immediately send medical personnel to operate field hospital in Gaza with the consent and agreement of all sides. We are in discussions with our partners to expedite the deployment of this medical personnel. Indonesia also is very willing to evacuate and treat wounded Palestinian civilians and those needing hospital care in Indonesian hospitals. President Joko Widodo has instructed me to announce that we are ready to evacuate, to receive, and to treat with medical care up to 1,000 patients in the immediate future. This positive move towards a comprehensive peace, towards a permanent ceasefire in the active and effective pursuit of a lasting solution to the present problem must be supported by the whole international community. Let us work together towards that goal. In the interest of all sides, we must do our best to achieve a real and lasting solution. 1 year ago, in the last Shangri-La dialogue that I attended, I also proposed an immediate ceasefire, a cessation of hostilities in place in the Ukrainian situation. Since that time, many thousands more lives have been lost on both sides, including many, many innocent civilians. After 1 year, I'm still convinced that my proposal remains logical, relevant, and necessary. Necessary as an intermediate solution to this difficult, dangerous, one might even say potentially disastrous situation in the Ukraine. Yes, Indonesia is far from the region, but we view with deep sadness the humanitarian suffering, the geopolitical and economic ramifications that has impacted the whole world, and yes, has impacted our own region. And of course, let us, as citizens of this world, citizens of this smaller planet, never lose sight of the dangers of escalation, the dangers of miscalculation, the danger of not understanding your adversary, of underestimating his legitimate interests. We must always be aware of the danger of escalation and the nightmare of nuclear war. Once again, I would like to reiterate my call for both sides to rise to the challenge of seeking a peaceful compromise in Ukraine. For the sake of the people of Ukraine, the people of Russia, the people of Europe, and the people of the whole world. I'm convinced that real leaders will always opt for the best solution to protect their peoples. Ladies and gentlemen, in regard to our own region, the Indo-Pacific, especially Southeast Asia, we will always work towards collaboration, compromise, and cooperation. We call for restraint, patience, and caution to prevail amongst all the stakeholders in our region. Once again, we call upon the leaders of the great Chinese civilization, as well as the leaders of the United States and its Western allies, representing also the great Western civilization, to rise to the great responsibilities in their leadership role as global powers. We, the nations of this world, depend and rely and demand the wisdom, the statesmanship, and the benevolence of the great powers. We are convinced that the leaders of the great powers can coexist with each other, can cooperate, can collaborate in the pursuit of the common good of humanity. Great power, with great power comes great responsibilities. Our world has become smaller. Science and technology has given us the opportunity to better the livelihood of our peoples. But also, without wisdom, without benevolence, without goodwill, science and technology can also quickly bring disaster and catastrophe to our world. Nationalism must be balanced by humanity. Patriotism must be tempered by wisdom and respect for all fellow citizens of the world. Let us work towards that common good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President-elect. I might have added that you have such a long wait to become president because you were so successful as to win the elections in the first round. May I ask you the first question, and I might ask a second. The first question on the conflict in Ukraine, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. President Zelensky is very much looking forward in a few weeks' time to holding a major international peace conference to achieve some of the aims that you outlined in your important remarks just now. Will Indonesia send a high-level delegation to that peace conference? And if so, have you decided who will lead it?
Well, sir, I have to remind you that I'm not yet the President of the Republic of Indonesia. And that is the authority of the current President of the Republic of Indonesia. So I think you have to ask that question to him.
Thank you very much. I'll turn to the audience for a couple of questions now, but I wanted to make certain that we had noted the remarkably important statement you made that the Republic of Indonesia is prepared, should the circumstances permit, to send peacekeeping troops to Gaza to sustain a ceasefire, and the important offer you made immediately to provide professional medical care to those who have suffered there. So thank you very much for that. I'll take a couple of questions before we close. So first, please, from Germany, Richard Walker.
Thank you very much. Mr. Defense Minister, you spoke eloquently about the responsibility of China and the United States and the broader West, of the great powers, in the competition that they are taking part in. One gets a strong sense that some countries in this region are very concerned about this sense that they're going to be forced to pick sides in the years ahead. Can you just reflect on that? And this is a criticism that I sometimes hear, particularly directed towards the United States. Is there anything you would like to say about that? Thank you.
And from Malaysia, Benedict Virasena.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister Prabowo, for that excellent remarks earlier. So I'd like to ask just two questions. In your opening remarks, you brought up the point that there are countries that have stated their positions, but do not want to listen to the opinion of others. Can I get a bit more elaboration on which countries are you referring to? And my second question, on a more serious note, with great power comes great responsibility. I totally agree with you. Indonesia is the largest Muslim-majority country in the world and also predicted to be the 7th largest economy in the world by 2030. What do you see as Indonesia's rising responsibilities moving on in the next decade? Thank you.
Thank you. And from Timor-Leste, Iriana Freitas de Jesus Jimenez.
Thank you for the opportunity. So my question is, what is your position on the negotiation regarding land and maritime boundaries with Timor-Leste as a president-elect and soon to be a president? And also, it is become your priority agenda by expediting this process of negotiation in a good faith, move forward and leaving past behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, that's 4 questions, Babak Prabowo, so go ahead, please.
Thank you. I think the first question from Mr. Richard Walker. What is our views concerning the U.S.-China rivalry, or let's say competition? I think our views has been very well known by tradition, by history, by the political will of the Indonesian people. We must maintain a policy of non-alignment, of maintaining the best relations with all nations of the world. If we divide, let us say, the relationships within concentric spheres, the Indonesian policy, and one which I will promote, is the maintenance, the fostering, the enhancement of a good neighbor policy with all our neighbors. I've been convinced, personally as an amateur historian, that real security comes through very good relations between our immediate neighbors. This is part of our Asian culture. We must be close, friendly with our immediate neighbors. That's our culture in day-to-day life. Because if our neighbor's house gets burned, who will help us? Will it be our cousin who lives in another city? Will it be our sibling who lives in another village? No, it will be the neighbor next to us. So this approach, along with my amateur study of history, convinces me that the Indonesian tradition of non-alignment, respect for all neighbors, respect for all countries, respect for all religion, all races, all cultures, all the great powers, is the correct way, and this we will maintain. So, regarding the issues between China and United States, we will always promote all efforts to achieve coexistence, to achieve collaboration, to achieve compromise. We must convince all leaders of all these great powers that they must put the common good, the common security, the common wealth of the whole world as top priority. That, I think, is our position, that we believe by engagement, by respect, by communication, by negotiation, we can solve many of these problems. We have had before military conflict with our neighbors. In my lifetime, we had conflicts with Malaysia, with Singapore. But now, we are the best of friends. We resolved our differences without interference from any external power. We resolved our differences. We put an end to fighting with Malaysia. We put an end to fighting with Singapore. Now, we are like brothers. Now we are talking of making perhaps a land bridge between Singapore and Batam. A land bridge between Malaysia and Indonesia. This is our tradition. Cambodia resolved long conflicts. East Timor, for many years, I was involved in the East Timor conflict. Now, can anybody imagine that I will sit on the same table with President Ramos Horta? Can you imagine, maybe there's a photograph or a video last night, we were hugging each other, we were walking hand in hand, and he has invited me to East Timor. I'm thinking about it.
Thank you very much indeed, Bapak Prabowo, for that special address, for your answers to questions, for giving us the honor of your presence here. It was vital that we had this address from you this afternoon, and we all thank you for your efforts. And good luck for the presidency.